Bonnie Sugarman. Yeah, you can start with that. Originally from Chicago, Bonnie Sugarman had the privilege of learning about live touring working with E.O. Stacy, generally recognized as the founding father of the entertainment at fairs. She relocated to Los Angeles with ICM and later moved to APA in charge of fairs and festivals. When APA decided to open a Nashville office, she relocated once again and has now spent well over 3 decades with APA. Throughout her career, she has formed lifelong relationships with buyers as well as artists. Among her most cherished memories are the years on the road with Red Skelton and Johnny and June Carter Cash. She is currently co-head of the Nashville office of APA, specializing in fairs. She was awarded the Nashville Association of Talent Directors Agent of the Year Award in both 1995 and 1996. In 2005, she was awarded the prestigious Hubert Long Award. She serves as first vice president of NATD, served on the ACM board, and is a graduate of the 2010 class of leadership music. Please welcome to the stage 2017 Source Hall of Fame inductee, Bonnie Sugarman.
Thank you. Settle down, APA, please. Well, as you can see by the photos, I've had the privilege of working with quite a number of marvelous, wonderful people. Tonight, I just want to tell a story about one very, very special man, always billed as one of America's clowns, Red Skelton. For some of you who may not be familiar with him, I'll wait while you Google him. This story is going to show you a little bit of what my life was like, and maybe a little bit of what life was like when things were a bit simpler in this business. Red was playing the Minnesota Fair in St. Paul. I usually covered dates, went with him. And his next engagement was in Kansas City about 5 days later. He always liked to get into a city a day or two early, so he was going to go directly to Kansas City from St. Paul. I got a call that afternoon from the promoter in St. Paul, and for some reason tickets were not selling, which is very unusual, and he wanted to cancel the date. Well, I spoke to Red, who had no manager, by the way, no one else with him. And after a moment, he said, well, okay, I'll just go on home. If you can imagine anyone today saying that. So I went home, and he went home. He lived in a city called Anza, A-N-Z-A, about 40 miles up a mountain from Palm Desert. And I lived in Los Angeles. About 2 days later, I got a call from the promoter in Kansas City, and ticket sales had picked up considerably. And a lot of people were very angry that he had canceled, and he needed him to be there. So, okay. Now, there was only one way to communicate with Red, and that was through his secretary, Anita, in the office in Palm Desert. Anita, at this time, was on vacation in Germany. No one had his home number. His musical director didn't, I didn't. And there were no cell phones or internet at that time. And I had no way to get hold of him and didn't know how to tell anyone that. And I racked my brain and remembered that about 4 weeks prior, he and Mrs. Skelton had gone to London, where he had done a command performance for the Queen. And while he was there, he did a live appearance on Good Morning America. Therefore, a lot of people saw him. A lot of people knew he was out of the country, and his house was burglarized. I figured he must have called the police when he got home. And, okay, somebody knew how to get hold of him. Like trying to figure which precinct to call, and I settled on Indio for some reason. And this was a very unusual conversation. But I actually finally talked to the officer who had gone up there and covered the case. And apparently she realized the eccentricity of the people I was talking about. And I said, please just get a message to him to call me. And about maybe 3 hours later, Mrs. Skelton called. I said, well, we have to go to Kansas City. The show's back on. Then Red got on the phone, which he never did. He hated talking on the phone. He was hysterical. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world that I had called the police, and they had gotten to him, and he called me. And I said, just let me know your flight information, please. And they called back in a bit and told me when he was getting in, and I arranged my flight for the same time, and we got into Kansas City. It's the end of part one. A limo picked us up in Kansas City on our way from the airport to the hotel. The limo driver said, Mr. Skelton, Ringling Brothers Circus is in town, and the clowns have invited you to Clown Alley. Now, for those who may not know, Clown Alley is a sacred place where the clowns make up, and only clowns are allowed. And of course, they worshiped him. And I wanted to go, and he let me go. And we did. We had a wonderful time. We took a lot of pictures. He took tons of pictures. He always did. And then that night was the show, which sold out, by the way. Now we're in the limo on the way to the show. And Red said, let's take the clowns to dinner. And I said, when? And he said, after the show. I said, that's going to be like midnight or later. So our trusty limo driver piped up. He said, well, I'll call someone and arrange for them to stay open. What do you like to eat? And he said, barbecued ribs. And I said, well, we're in the right city. Okay. So we went. He did his normal 2.5-hour show, signed autographs for a good hour, and about 12:15, something like that. Here we were in a stretch limo on our way to Gates Barbecue, which I think is still there, in a not very nice area in Kansas City. And then the limo driver, once again, said, by the way, I told the clowns to stay in makeup. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, here we are with the entire Gates family and their extended family who owned the restaurant, waiting outside. Went in, sat down, he held court, told jokes with about 25 clowns in full makeup and costume. And then we went back to the hotel and left the next morning. And that is totally the truth. Thank you. Thank you, Source. Thank you, APA.